Okay. All right, so I'm going to be working a little bit larger scale today, and what that does is it helps, I think, you guys see a little bit more clearly what's going on with the clay as it moves and emerges into being. I'm making what's called a sectional pot today, and what that involves is making two pieces and joining them together, two cylinders, and joining them together. This is a way you can work with larger amounts of clay and not have to do it all in one shot. It saves, I think, time, effort, and energy. So I'm going to start off with the second of the two pieces that are going together. It's smaller and easier to move. I'm going to make it first. When you're working with clay, the first thing you want to do is center. When you're working larger pieces of clay, sometimes it's helpful to center in bands, so I can kind of transfer my weight from my elbow through my forearm to my heel, and then lean right in toward the center and center that band, then this band, and this band. So now the whole thing is centered, right? And then to kind of warm the clay up a little bit more, I can draw it up by squeezing on both sides. I can maybe come up a little bit higher if I want. I can bring it down, supporting it from the side, applying pressure on top. There's two main directions that we apply pressure on clay. And when I'm in a good position here, could add a little bit more clay to this one. Make a little bit larger top section. So I'll smooth off this top, make sure it's nice and smooth and liquid slip free. And take a little bit. I want to take a little bit off this one. Just going with the sense of feel here. So let that be part of the next batch. So what I'm basically doing is attaching one piece of clay onto another, centering in bands again. So this is like, once you guys get to a point where you can make cylinders confidently, but you have a kind of maybe a max size piece of clay you're comfortable working, or at least centering, you can double it up by just adding one piece onto another. One of the tricks with working in larger scale is just that you use larger parts of your hand to interact with the clay. It's not all that much different than working small scale, although gravity comes into play a little bit more than when you're working really small. But this is something, if scale is of interest to you guys, you can pursue it even in your first class here toward the end of the semester. Okay, so we've got this section set, centered. When you go into clay, when you always get that centered mass, you always want to dive right down in the middle. So I dive straight down. And because this piece, I'm actually making it upside down, I can dive in all the way to the floor and feel and see that bat wheel head at the bottom. And from there, just kind of hook in and draw that clay back a little bit. And once I have it open up as much as I want, I can start drawing that clay upwards. Now, no matter what size piece of clay you're using, I always like to come in with my left heel on the side, and my fingers on the inside, give it a squeeze and lean, and draw that clay up and in slightly so that the clay stays under control. In this case, I'm trying not to get it definitely too thin on top, because I'm making it upside down, this is going to be stuck onto another cylinder. I need to have some strength here. You do a thing called a collar, right? Put pressure on the outside of the piece, squeeze, and that'll give you added height and control for sure. So now we're kind of up, we're in a slight taper, and then we'll bite in. In this case, instead of using my fingertips, I'm using my first knuckle on my pointer finger to kind of bite in and push out from the inside. And again, making sure I don't thin it too much at the top half here, because it's really the bottom, it needs to be strong. And one more collar to get control of that clay. So you can see there's repetition involved in making any of these shapes, right? But we're basically trying to set ourselves up for the creative part, which is shaping at the very end. So I'll do one more pull, make sure I've got enough clay up off of here. Seems like it's in good shape. And so that much is done. And the other one won't take much longer. This clay's got a nice consistency to it. And then now I'll just save up the side here. Smooth a little bit with this rib. And then because one piece is going to be fitting onto another, I'm going to make this convex. It's got an outward curve to it, the lip. And then I'll use this needle tool here. Even though it's soft clay to soft clay, I use a needle tool to rough up this connection because I want it to be really nice connection. That's pretty much set. So part one's complete. I'll take this off the wheel and set it aside. Set that aside. Pop another bat on here. And do the same thing, but just a little bit larger. It's always nice to kind of wet the wheel head before you clean it. Keep the dust down. Okay, that piece off. And same thing. Preferably with dry hands before you add water. Pat it in place, seal it. A little water. Center it in bands. Got control of the mass. Then come up and down with it. They call that wheel wedging. So lean in with that left heel. Squeeze from the outside. Play has no choice but to go up, right? And when you come down, you support the side while you push down on the top. This way it doesn't mushroom out on you. Seems like it's responding pretty nicely. I won't go up again with it. This is good. So I'll smooth off the top. Use this tool to remove that slip and make it perfect, right? Then the next thing is adding that second piece of clay on there. Pat that on. Seal it. Center it in bands. You guys, I really believe in repetition, whether it's seeing or doing. It's good for you guys to get a feel for what clay can do. All right, so we squeeze in, come down, support from the side, bring it down. I want to make sure this connection is really smooth, so I'm trying not to trap any air in that connection. And finally just even that off. So what we got now is our centered mass. This time when I dive down, I'm not going to be going all the way to the bat like I did on that one. I want to leave about, I don't know, ½ inch or so on the floor. So I can check that. I can't really see that so well. I can see it's pretty close. Well, I want to know exactly how thick it is. It's a little on the thin side. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of push some clay down the wall and bring that over as part of the floor. Check the thickness there. It's a little thicker than we need, which is a good thing. Okay, and now come straight across, create a floor at the right depth. When you're opening up, it's really important to think about how you're moving the clay, how you're applying your pressure. And I always think of it as I'm kind of curling and using my fingertip to kind of bite into that clay on the inside, and then the rest of the clay basically follows. One little care. It's important to give that floor care, because if you don't, it's just sort of like an unfinished part of the piece that wasn't deliberate, and it's just, you know, it's a drag. Okay, so we've got nice, smooth, finished, flat floor. And now it's a matter of just drawing the clay up and getting our basic cylinder and putting these together. Okay, so I'll lean in with here. Even squeeze. Applying some pressure to the top, just so it's all nice and even. Come in with a collar, so I can control the clay from the outside a little bit. Get to rise. Notice I'm leaning my left heel right into the clay, so it just stays centered. And then once we have it kind of going up, draw the clay up with a more traditional pull. I don't need to go super thin here because I need to be able to support that cylinder on top of it. But I do need to make sure the widths are the same. Looks like this one's a little bit larger. So I can fix that by collaring just a little bit. So I think I'm pretty close. I use my fingers as a caliper for a gauge for the width. Just about right. What I can do is I can clean up this side and open it up just a little. And be set up for success hopefully here. Okay, so now we've got a cylinder that's ready to receive, almost ready. Since this one's rounded down, I'm going to round this one in a concave curve to the lip here. Give that a little bit of texture, a little scoring. There is some of the water on the inside here. It's ready to go. Another fresh bucket of water went around it. The water can get kind of thick after making a couple of these. This piece, I didn't cut it off, right? So it's still like connected to the bat. So if I'm careful and lucky, flip it, set it right on. Although I have its full weight until it's like it's centered nicely. Once it's on there, I kind of get my belly up against it so that when I cut it, I'll knock it off center. The first thing I need to do now is get rid of that extra clay that's up on top. So that'll involve just using this needle tool. And there's some extra clay here that was the floor, which I need to cut through and remove. Okay. And the next most important thing here is making sure that seam is like sealed, right? So you see, if you set it down right and throw it even, it lines up pretty well. I want to make sure that this whole piece is all kind of copacetic, right? So I'm going to come through that seam, apply some pressure there, and just draw up and make sure this whole thing is kind of in tune with itself. And this is a little bit extra thick. As thin as I tried to get it, it's a little on the extra thick side. And that look a little bit. So you can use a needle tool or a wire tool to take care of lips when necessary. Okay, so we've got a pretty good flow going through these two. So now we're ready to address this piece from the base up. I'll leave it spinning at that speed. Drizzle some water down the inside. It's always important when you're working that you drizzle water down the inside and out. It cuts down on the friction. Okay. I'm basically trying to come straight up with this right now to get it all kind of like evened out and really centered, getting a little bit of volume. Using the side of my pointer finger rather than my fingertips to work the clay here. So that's the first pass. You can get a lot more strength in the cylinder if it's slightly narrowed and flared here at the top. It just makes the whole thing stronger. So I'm going to just kind of squeeze in here and give it a little bit of a constriction and flare. Color that section. I'll take care of that later. And then now it's like, okay, we need volume. We need a little bit more thinness. We need volume. There's this thing called angle of departure here. If we're not looking at our phones, that'd be amazing. I appreciate it for not looking at our phones. There's this angle of departure. Like, I don't want to go too sharp here because there's so much weight in this piece that if I'm too sharp with my departure here, the whole thing will fall, right? So I want to get some volume, but not too much. Think of it as kind of like blowing up a balloon. Any pot you make, you're just sort of gradually bringing it to its final resting form. So see how it's gaining some volume? I will just do a little more water. And I think the bottom, like looking at it, I can see like the bottom third-ish. It's probably where it needs to be. The rest of it needs a little bit more thinness and volume. So you come in, pass through this section, really start stretching and plowing it into a little bit more here. And this is probably my last pull that I'll do with my fingers alone. Starting to give way a little bit. Then we move into another technique which involves using, that rib I used to clean up the side of it, to smooth it out, refine it. But you can use that for shaping the curves as well. So it should be short enough I can get in there sitting here. There's one more rib, the wood in the rib. As soon as the room ripped out. One more little technique. So if you look at the profile of this tool, it's flat here on the bottom, slightly curved, just like the inside of this piece. So I can use this flexible rib on the outside and this wooden rib on the inside, use them together to support and shape, refine the form. You guys can be using ribs from the start, for sure. So we'll start, right about there. Supporting the clay, taking a nice arc through the clay, beginning to return back to the neck, lifting a little bit here around the shoulder. See how it's gaining some volume and getting a little bit more boldness. I'd say there's 2 or 3 more passes in this set. You can only go so far with these, at least I can, until they need to set up a little bit more. And you can do the final stretching and shaping. Kind of like lifting. Wouldn't mind a little more volume out of it. It's always tricky to decide when to stop, but I think we can take a little more. Okay, so that's about as much as I can get out of it in the first session. I'm going to wrap this lip with plastic, let it spin for a little while, and then once it's firmed up, be able to get a little bit more stretch out of it. And then what will happen is the body will firm up, and because I have the lip wrapped, that'll stay soft, and I can finish that off to the way I like it in the end. Make sense? All right, cool. What time does class go till? Perfect. You guys are all set. That's information I wanted to get into you guys today. We're going to pick up with the hand building. Am I going to see you guys tomorrow? No. Okay, so we'll pick up in 2 days, on Thursday, with the hand building. And next week we'll wrap up our next 2 units after that, and we'll start the wheel about a week and a half from now. Sound good? I appreciate your attention, guys. Hopefully that was worthwhile for you guys.